The sun was just beginning to dip toward the Pacific when Mia stepped onto the warm sand of Laguna Beach, California. She had flown in from New York only that morning, trading gray skyscrapers and November chill for the endless golden light of the West Coast. At 26, she had spent the last 4 years chasing magazine covers and runway shows across Europe, but something about this stretch of coastline always pulled her home. Maybe it was the way the waves sounded like they were whispering secrets, or maybe it was because this was the one place where nobody expected her to be anybody but herself. She dropped her canvas tote beside a faded turquoise towel, kicked off her sandals, and let the late afternoon heat kiss her shoulders. The polka dot bikini she wore was new, bought on impulse at a little boutique in Venice Beach the day before, and it felt like freedom against her skin. No stylist, no photographer barking orders, no ring light. Just her, the ocean, and the low hum of families packing up for the day. Mia stretched out on the towel and closed her eyes, listening to the rhythmic crash of the surf. For the first time in months, her mind wasn't racing. No upcoming go-sees, no inbox exploding with revisions, no pressure to stay rail-thin for sample sizes. She was here for 2 weeks, renting a tiny cottage up the hill in the village, and she had promised herself she would do absolutely nothing except breathe. That promise lasted exactly 7 minutes. Hey, excuse me, aren't you Mia Ivanov? She opened one eye. A guy in navy board shorts and salt-stiff curls stood a respectful distance away, holding a beat-up surfboard under one arm. He looked about 30, sun-browned and easy smiling, the kind of handsome that didn't seem to know it was handsome. She sat up, brushing sand from her thighs. Depends who's asking. He laughed, a low, warm sound. Fair. I'm Luke. I shoot surf photography sometimes. Saw you on the cover of Vogue Italia last month. The one in the red dress on the Amalfi Cliffs. Insane. Mia felt her cheeks heat, and not from the sun. People recognized her more often now, but it still caught her off guard. That was a good day, she said, smiling despite herself. Until I almost fell off the cliff in 6-inch heels. Luke grinned wider. Worth it for the shot, though. He gestured at the water. I was about to paddle out for the sunset session. Conditions are perfect. You ever surf? Never, she admitted. I grew up in Manhattan. Closest I got was the wave pool at a water park in New Jersey when I was 12. He looked genuinely offended on her behalf. That's a crime against California. Tell you what, I've got a spare longboard and about 45 minutes before the light dies. Want a quick lesson? No pressure. Mia glanced at the horizon, where the sun was melting into tangerine and rose. 45 minutes of doing something she'd never done before, with a complete stranger who looked like he belonged on the beach the way other people belonged in offices. It felt like the opposite of every decision she'd made in the past 4 years. Yes, she said, standing up and brushing sand from her legs. Let's do it. 20 minutes later she was laughing so hard she could barely stay on the board. Luke was patient, pushing her into gentle waves and shouting encouragement as she flailed, popped up too late, and wiped out spectacularly. Salt water stung her eyes and filled her mouth, but every time she surfaced gasping, she was grinning like a kid. On her 5th try, she actually caught one. The board skimmed forward, the wave curled behind her like a secret, and for 3 glorious seconds she was flying, knees bent, arms out, hair whipping in the wind. When she finally kicked off and tumbled into the shallow foam, Luke whooped loud enough for half the beach to hear. She waded back to him, chest heaving, eyes bright. I take back every bad thing I ever said about California. Told you, he said, high-fiving her with a wet palm. First rule of surfing. The ocean doesn't care who you are on land. Out here, everybody starts over. They paddled in as the sky turned violet and the first stars blinked on. The beach had nearly emptied, only a few bonfires glowed in the distance. Luke wedged both boards into the sand and pulled 2 Mexican glass bottle cokes from his backpack like it was the most natural thing in the world. They sat side by side on her towel, legs stretched toward the water, passing the cold bottle back and forth. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it felt earned. So what's a Vogue cover girl doing alone on Laguna Beach in November? He asked eventually. Mia shrugged, digging her toes into the cool sand. Trying to remember what quiet feels like. I've been go since I was 19. Paris, Milan, Tokyo. Sometimes I wake up in hotel rooms and can't remember what city I'm in. She took a long drink. My agent thinks I'm crazy for taking 2 weeks off. Says I'll lose momentum. Luke was quiet for a moment. Momentum's overrated if you forget why you started. She looked at him, curious. What about you? You said you shoot surf photos sometimes. What do you do the rest of the time? I build boats, he said simply. Wooden ones. By hand. Takes about a year for a good sailboat. Slow as hell, but when it finally hits the water, he smiled at some private memory. Nothing like it. Mia tried to picture him in a workshop surrounded by sawdust and curved ribs of cedar, and somehow it fit perfectly with the sun-bleached surfer in front of her. They talked until the moon was high and the air turned cool enough for goosebumps. She told him about the time she got food poisoning in Marrakesh the night before a Dior show and still had to walk the runway smiling. He told her about the storm off Baja that cracked his mast and left him drifting for 14 hours until the Coast Guard found him. Ordinary stories, maybe, but they felt like treasures traded in the dark. Eventually he stood and offered his hand. Walk you to your car. I'm up the hill, she said. Renting a place on Pearl Street. I know the one with the blue door and the lemon tree out front, he laughed. Whole town's only 10 blocks long. Nothing's far. They gathered her things and climbed the wooden stairs from the sand to the street. The village was quiet, windows glowing gold, jasmine heavy in the air. When they reached the little gate, Mia turned to him. Thank you, she said. For the lesson. For, I don't know. Reminding me there's a whole world that doesn't revolve around runway timing and call sheets. Luke brushed a strand of salty hair from her cheek, the gesture gentle and unhurried. Anytime, Mia from Manhattan. She thought he might kiss her then, under the street lamp with the ocean humming behind them, but he didn't. Instead he just smiled, soft and knowing, and stepped back. Sunrise session tomorrow? He asked. Best waves of the day. She laughed, surprised at how easily the answer came. 6:30. I'll bring coffee. He jogged backward down the street, waving once before disappearing around the corner. Mia let herself into the cottage, dropped her sandy towel on the porch, and stood under the outdoor shower letting cool water wash the salt away. For the first time in years, she fell asleep without setting an alarm. The next 2 weeks unfolded like a secret she hadn't known she was keeping from herself. Mornings with Luke on the water, afternoons reading paperbacks in the cottage garden, evenings walking the village eating tacos from a truck parked near the basketball courts. Some days they didn't speak much, just floated side by side beyond the break, watching pelicans dive and the horizon shimmer. On the last evening, they built a small fire on the beach after the lifeguards went home. The sky was clear, a million stars scattered like someone had spilled diamonds across black velvet. Mia leaned back against Luke's chest, his arms loose around her waist, and realized she wasn't counting the days until she had to leave anymore. I got offered Tokyo Fashion Week, she said quietly. Headliner. My agent's losing her mind that I haven't answered yet. Luke was silent a moment, chin resting on her damp hair. And what does Mia want? She turned in his arms to face him, firelight dancing across both their faces. I think Mia wants to stay a little longer. Build something slow. Like boats. He smiled then, the slow, certain smile that had unraveled her from the first day, and kissed her like the tide kisses the shore. Gentle, constant, inevitable. When she finally boarded the plane back to New York 3 months later, it wasn't to resume the old whirlwind. It was to pack the rest of her life into 2 suitcases and book a one-way ticket west. Some covers you chase. Some waves you just wait for, patient and certain, until they carry you exactly where you were always meant to be.